psychology of self-perfection. So it's 8 o'clock. We can start. Recording has started. So who will read? Shilpa, you have not read a long time. Can you read?
Yes,
Go
Rangadhar.
ahead.
The
Read.
psychology of self-perfection. Essentially, then this divine self-perfection is a conversion of the human into the likeness of and a fundamental oneness with the divine nature, a rapid shaping of the image of God in man and filling in of its ideal outlines. It is what is ordinarily termed Sridhya Mukti, a liberation into the divine resemblance out of the bondage of the human seeming, or to use the expression of the Gita, Sadharma Gati, Sadharmya Gati, a coming to be one in law of being with the supreme, universal, and indwelling divine, to perceive and have a right view of our way to such a transformation, we must form some sufficient working idea of the complex thing that is human nature at present is in the confused interminglings of its various principles, so that we may see the precise nature of the conversion each part of it must undergo and the most effective means for the conversion. How to disengage from this knot of thinking moral matter, the immortal it contains from this mentalized vital animal man, the happy fullness of this his submerged hints of Godhead is the real problem of a human being and living. Life develops many first hints of the divinity without completely disengaging them. Yoga is the unraveling of the knot of life's difficulty.
Okay, so we'll read what he's saying. He's going to tell us the psychology of self-perfection. The other yogas don't insist on self-perfection. They insist only on liberation, and then the soul, when it is absolutely liberated, it disappears into the infinite or stays put in the heavens. Okay, it lives there permanently. But in Slavno's yoga, he doesn't neglect the body, the lower hemisphere. He does not neglect the body, life, and mind. So, how to do that? Because it seems to be the opposite of the divine. That's what he is telling us now. So, we'll see each sentence and see whether it's clear. Essentially, then, this divine self-perfection is a conversion of the human into the likeness of and a fundamental oneness with the divine nature. A rapid shaping of the image of God in man and filling in of its ideal outlines. Very interesting sentence. Let's see what he said. So basically, the consciousness must become divine, but the outer nature, okay, there must be some a shadow of the divine, okay, like a silhouette. He is using very interesting word, filling in of the ideal outlines. So the human body has to show some amount of divinity in its silhouette, in its outlines. Okay? So you must know immediately, you must see that this someone is unusual. He is not talking of the supermental race. He is talking of the ordinary man. Okay? When his consciousness is liberated and becomes divinized. The consciousness itself can be divinized, but not the body-mind life. But there also some amount of the divine qualities must come, it must show in the outer nature also. That's what he said. That's what he means by filling in of its ideal outlines. It is what is ordinarily termed Sadrishya Mukti. Sadrishya Mukti, you put on the nature of the divine. Sadrishya means similar to. Okay? So it means you have a similar nature to the divine. The body-mind life remains as it is. Your thoughts and your emotions and all that will be absolutely divine. There will be no error in them. A liberation into the divine resemblance out of the bondage of the human seeming, or to use the expression of the Gita, sadharmya gati. The dharma, the, your, the, means the same thing, but it's using another word, sadharmya gati. Okay. A coming to one in law of being with the Supreme. Certainly explaining what is meant by sadharmya gati. A coming to the one in law of being with the Supreme, universal and indwelling divine. To perceive and have a right view of our way to such a transformation, we must form some sufficient working idea of the complex thing that is human nature at present is, in the confused interminglings of its various principles, so that we may see the precise nature of the conversion each part of it must undergo, and most effective means for the conversion. So, what are our various principles? Mind, life and body mainly, and the soul. Okay? So, this has to, and they are intermingling. The mind is mixing with the vital is mixing with the body. Okay, so there is intermingling. There is a constant interaction between sattva, rajas, tamas. The mind, the vital, and the body. Only when they become absolutely equal to each other, then you have liberation. That's the Sankhya philosophy. So and also the Gita also. So Srinath is saying, such a huge work, the divine and the human beings are so separate and so far apart that we must have some idea of how to go about it. Okay? Some sufficient working idea. May not be fully, but at least some idea we must have of how to go about the business. Okay? That's what he's saying. So that you may see the precise nature of the conversion. How is the mind to be converted? How is the vital to be converted? How is the body to be made subtle and healthy and even conquering death afterwards? Okay? Each part of it must undergo, and the most effective means of the conversion. What is the best way to convert? That is human nature into the divine. That's what we shall see in the next paragraphs. How to disengage from this knot of thinking mortal matter. Look at the way he is expressing. Knot of thinking mental mortal matter. It is matter which has to become divine. So he is putting it in this way to forcefully make you realize what a gigantic task it is. Not of thinking mortal matter, the immortal it contains. What is immortal in you? Your psychic being. From this mentalized vital animal man, the happy fullness of his submerged hints of God. Submerged hints, you don't see the, but when the psychic comes forward, then you realize that there is an inherent purity and everything is possible when that happens. Is a real problem of a human being when living. What's the real problem? How to become divine. How can the human nature become divine? Life develops many first hints of the divinity without completely disengaging them. So, he is talking of the experiences that you get to see that yes, a transformation is possible. Life develops many first hints of the divinity without completely disengaging them. Yoga is the unraveling of the knot of life's difficulty. So yoga is the way forward to start the process of transformation. Okay, we go to the next part. First of all, we have to know the sentence. So, Suki, maybe you can read. Kiran, if you have time,
Yes,
you can read.
yes, Kiran, wait.
Okay. So Suki, you read.
Yes. First of
First
all,
of all.
First of all, we have to know the central secret of the psychological complexity, which creates the problem and all its difficulties. But an ordinary psychology which only takes mind and its phenomena at their surface values will be of no help to us. It did not give us the least guidance in this line of self-exploration and self-conversion. Still, less can we find a clue in a scientific psychology with a materialistic basis, which assumes that the body and the biological and psychological factors of our nature are not only the starting point, but the whole real foundation, and regards the human mind as only a subtle development from the life and the body. That may be the actual truth of the animal side of human nature and of the human mind, insofar as it is limited and conditioned by the physical part of our being. But the whole difference between man and the animal is that the animal mind, as we know it, cannot get for one moment away from its origins, cannot break, cannot break out from the covering, the close chrysalis which the bodily life had spun round the soul, and become something greater than its present self, a more free, magnificent, and noble beings. But in man, mind reveals itself as a greater energy, escaping from the restriction of the vital and physical formula of being. But even this is not all that man is or can be. He has in him the power to evolve and release a still greater ideal energy, which he in its turn escape out of the restrictions of the mental formula of his nature and discloses the supramental form, the ideal power of a spiritual being. In yoga, we have to travel beyond the physical nature and the superficial man, and to discover the workings of the whole nature of the real man. In other words, we must arrive at and use a psychophysical knowledge with a spiritual foundation.
Okay, so we'll do one thing. We will read the summary first in short so that we understand what he's saying. Then after that, we will go sentence by sentence. I am reading the summary. To understand and enable this release of the psychic being from the prison of body, life, and mind, we have to know what the total human psychological state is, what its complexities are, what are the precise problems it poses for man. All these things we have to know before we can start the yoga of transformation. But here, the ordinary psychology, which limits itself to man's mind and its superficial activities, will be of no help to us. Again, the scientific psychology, which considers mind as a product of matter, will help us even less. Okay? But these two views may be partially valid for the superficial animal nature of man. We have the vital is usually what it refers to as the superficial animal nature of man. Okay? The vital in the body, okay? Not the mind so much. Even the physical mind, yes, even that is part of the animal nature. But the fundamental difference between man and animal is this, that the animal soul can never, even for a moment, disengage itself from the body and the vital where it is permanently locked in. Cannot disengage from the body. But man is capable of separating his soul and self from moorings of body, life, and mind. The anchorings can be undone. That's what shall be said. Not only so, but he can even enter into a vast divine consciousness in the spiritual regions and even in the supramental plane. Yoga enables man to surpass his superficial outer nature and arrive at his essentially divine nature. This is what he said. Okay? So now we will see what he's saying in these sentences. So we have to understand. Okay, we start reading the first sentence. Okay. First of all, we have to know the central secret of the psychological complexity which creates a problem and all its difficulties. But in ordinary psychology, which only takes the ordinary psychology is talking of Western psychology, okay? Because they consider man as a product of matter. Okay? In fact, I know I have a friend whose sister is studying psychology and doing research work in psychology in the West. And she has recently been, she's a Parsi, and she has been honored for her research in psychology. Their psychology is totally different, nothing to do with the spiritual psychology. Okay? That's why Indian psychologists here, okay, Alok Pandey and others also, Basu and others, they use the word integral psychology, which is absolutely different from the Western psychology, and they use that psychology for, police work and things like that, and social work. They use the psychology. Sometimes they use it even for economics, but nothing to do with the spiritual level. That's what Sandhu is referring to. But an ordinary psychology, which only takes mind and its phenomena at their surface values, will be of no help to us. It will not give us the least guidance in this line of self-exploration and self-conversion. When that girl I was talking about, she has been research and she has been honored very much. When she was here, we discussed and we saw there is absolutely no connection at all between the Western psychology and the Indian psychology. No connection at all. Okay? So, still less can we find a clue in a scientific psychology with a materialistic basis, which assumes that the body and the biological and physiological factors of our nature are not only the starting point, but the whole real foundation, and regards human mind as only a subtle development from the life and body. Okay, so there is making a difference between ordinary psychology and the scientific psychology. Scientific psychology is absolutely physical. But ordinary psychology is referring, the starting point was Sigmund Freud. And there it is a little more psychological of dreams and your vital and all that. But it's over exaggerated, and they consider mostly that the human being is largely governed by his sexual impulses. This is an unbelievably exaggerated account. Okay, it's not true at all. And Srivastava speaks about it in one letter. He says Western psychology is at a kindergarten stage. He is at a kindergarten stage, and he says A, B, C. Okay, C cat. Okay, D dog. They're at that level. He says. Okay? So he's making a difference between ordinary psychology and scientific psychology. Both are miles apart from the integral psychology. Still less can we find a clue in scientific psychology with a materialistic basis, which assumes that the body and the biological and physiological factors of our nature are not only the starting point, but the whole real foundation, and regards human mind as only a subtle development in the life of the body and the body. So, in fact, they are studying the chemical reactions in the body and how it affects the chemical reactions, how they affect the emotions and the thinking. So it's absolutely materialistic. That's what they do. I read the next sentence. That may be the actual truth of the animal side of human nature. It is true that chemicals do make a difference to our behavior. It is true. There is no doubt about it. But that's only the physical part. Okay? We know that very well. No? Physical part, and it has an effect on the body to a certain extent on the vital and the mind also, because They are connected because they are connected. So he's saying that may be the actual truth of the animal side of human nature, of the human mind, insofar as it is limited and conditioned by the physical part of our being. In fact, nowadays we know that even drugs are used for controlling psychological things. Even psychologists, Alok is a psychologist, and they use medicines for changing antidepressants and things like that. Okay? So there's so many other things also. They can be very dangerous also. Anyway, but the whole difference between man and the animal is that the animal mind, as we know it, cannot get for one moment away from its origins. Okay? Cannot break out from the covering, the closed chrysalis, which the bodily life has spun around the soul, and become something greater than its present self, a more free, magnificent, and noble being. This animal can't do because it has no way to do that. But human beings can separate their soul and even their mind from the body. That's possible. But in man, mind reveals itself as a greater energy, escaping from the restrictions of the vital and physical formula of being. But even this is not all that man is or can be. He has in him the power to evolve and release a still greater ideal energy, which in its turn escapes out of the restrictions of the mental formula of his nature and discloses the supramental form, the ideal power of a spiritual being. In yoga, we have to travel beyond the physical nature and the superficial man and to discover the workings of the whole nature of the real man. There is an outer man and there is a real man. The real man is the potential divine nature in him, supported by the psychic being, and the outer, the superficial man, is the body-mind life. In other words, we must arrive at and use a psychophysical knowledge with a spiritual foundation. They have to go beyond the physical and very spiritual foundation. Now we can read the third paragraph. Man is in his real nature. So maybe you can read now.
I read Rangada just
Oh,
before.
you read. Okay.
Yeah,
Then-
that was not Kiran.
Oh, I
was
thought
me.
I'm sorry. So Archana Ji also can read. If she is there, doesn't seem to be there. Shilpa, are you there?
Yes, Rangada.
Okay.
Rangada,
Yes.
I have already read. If somebody want to read,
You
I have
also
read.
have read. So only now, because Kiran can't read today, so only Archana they can read if she is there. But if she is not there, then I will read it.
I will read.
Okay.
I can read.
I will read it. Okay.
No, Suki is telling she will read.
Pardon?
Rangada, I can read it.
Okay.
Should I read?
Rangada,
Go ahead.
Suki will read.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I'll-
Okay.
Man is in his real nature, however obscure now, this truth may be to our present understanding and self-consciousness. We must, for the purposes of the yoga, have a faith in it, and we shall find then that our faith is justified by an increasing experience and a greater self-knowledge. A spirit using in mind, life, and body for an individual and a communal experience and self-manifestation in the universe. This spirit is an infinite existence limiting itself in apparent being for individual experience. It is an infinite consciousness which defines itself in finite forms of consciousness for joy of various knowledge and various power of being. It is an infinite delight of a being expanding and contracting itself and its powers, concealing and discovering, formulating many terms of its joy of existence, even to an apparent obscuration and denial of its own nature. In itself, it is eternal Satchidananda, but this complexity, this nothing of and unraveling of the infinite and the finite is the aspect we see it assume in universal and in individual nature. To discover the eternal Satchidananda, this essential self of our being within us, and live in it is the stable basis to make its true nature evident and creative of a divine way of living in our instruments, supermind, mind, life, and body, the active principle of a spiritual perfection.
Okay, all small paras. That's why we have come to third para. So again, I suggest that we read the summary, okay, so that we know exactly what he's saying, and then we will go back to the text. Okay. Now somebody is asking, and sometimes I put his thoughts in a different way so that it comes like forcibly to us. So he is talking of animal man and he is talking of real man. So the question arises, what then is a human being? What is he? Okay. So, what then is a human being? Now Srimad replies, he is essentially a spirit, using the instruments of body, life and mind for an individual as well as a collective living. This is not how man sees himself. But if we believe and practice yoga, one must start from this truth, which faith must confirm in us. Our faith will be justified at the end of the journey. So, this is what he's saying, that man is essentially spirit. Now, the next question arises, what is spirit? So, he is defining. What is spirit? It is an infinite existence which limits itself for individual existence in the world. This is spirit. An infinite existence which limits itself for individual existence in the world. An infinite consciousness. It is also an infinite consciousness which limits itself into small units of consciousness for varied knowledge and varied power. This is spirit. The one spirit breaks itself up into many small individual spirits. For varied knowledge and varied power. It's also an infinite delight which also restricts itself for various experience of pleasure and even suffering, where it seems to deny itself. The spirit is essentially one, Satchidananda, but it expresses itself in the cosmos as a complexity of the multiplicity. It's a complex multiplicity. Satchidananda is inherent in every individual. He has to discover this truth in himself and also live in it. It's not enough to just discover it. Your life must become absolutely an adjunct to what you have become. In life, you must express your divine nature. That's very important. It must make it permanent basis. All our outer instruments must be used to express this Satchidananda in physical life. This is what he said. Okay? Now we can go back to the text. Man is in his real nature. Okay? What is it? He is reply. Very often, you reach there, though, after you read the passage, you formulate a question to yourself. Okay? What is the replying to? Okay? And when you put a question, then the whole thing becomes very clear. That's why I've done that. I've put in the what is man? So he is replying to what is man. He is starting without asking the question. Okay? So he is saying, man is in his real nature, however obscured, Now this truth may be to our present understanding and self-concept. Very few people in the world admit, the other religions certainly don't admit that human being is essentially divine. Nobody admits. Only in the Indian context we know that the human beings are essentially divine. With the potentiality of realizing that divinity. Whereas the animal also is essentially divine. Even the stone is essentially divine. But there the potentiality of expressing the divinity is not there. Whereas it is very much there in man. Man is in his nature, real nature, however obscure now this truth may be to our present understanding and self-consciousness, we must, for the purposes of yoga, have faith in it. And we should then find that our faith is justified by an increasing experience and a greater self-knowledge. A spirit using the mind, life and body for an individual and a communal experience and self-manifestation in the universe. This spirit is an infinite existence, limiting itself in apparent being for individual experience. It limits itself so that it can have experience in the physical world. This spirit is an infinite existence, limiting itself in apparent being for individual experience. It is an infinite consciousness which defines itself in finite forms of consciousness for joy of various knowledge and various power of being. Note the word various, different types of knowledge, okay, and different types of power also, and different types of also ananda. Okay? The one becoming the many types of anandas also are. It is an infinite delight of being, expanding and contracting itself and its powers, concealing and discovering, formulating many terms of its joy of existence, even to an apparent obscuration and denial of its own nature. 90% of humanity denies its own divine nature. Okay, that's very simple. Apparent obscuration and denial of its own nature. In itself, it is eternal Satchidananda. That is what spirit is. Okay? But this complexity, this knotting up and unraveling of the infinite in the finite is the aspect we have to, is the aspect we see it assume in universal and in universal nature. In universal and in individual nature. Sorry. To discover the eternal Satchidananda, this essential self of our being within us and live in it is a stable basis. To make it true nature, make its true nature, make its true nature evident and creative of a divine way of living in our instruments, supermind, mind, life and body, an active principle of spiritual perfection. We have to realize that we are not the animal being, nor are we the mental being. We are the divine being, and we have to realize that. That's what it is. What's the time? 34. So we have 6 minutes more. And all the two of you read, one more para remains to be done. Supermind, mind, life and body.
Rangata, am I audible?
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
I can't hear.
Can you hear me?
Chandy, can you read?
That's what I'm asking. Am I audible?
Yes, faint, very faint, but audible. Faint because of my deafness.
Yeah, we can hear well.
There's something wrong. Okay, then it's okay. Then I'm
We can hear well. Yeah.
Supermind, mind, life, and body are the four instruments which the spirit uses for its manifestation in the workings of nature. Supermind is spiritual consciousness acting as a self-luminous knowledge, will, sense, aesthesis, energy, self-creative and unveiling power of its own delight and being. Mind is the action of the same powers, but limited and only very indirectly and partially illuminated. Supermind lives in unity, though it plays with diversity. Mind lives in a separative action of diversity, though it may open to unity. Mind is not only capable of ignorance, but because it acts always partially and by limitation, it works characteristically as a power of ignorance. It may even, and it does forget itself in a complete inconscience or nescience, awaken from it to the ignorance of a partial knowledge, and move from the ignorance towards a complete knowledge. That is its natural action in the human being, but it can never have by itself a complete knowledge. Supermind is incapable of real ignorance, even if it puts full knowledge behind it in the limitation of a particular working. Yet all its working refers back to what it has put behind it, and all is instinct with self illumination. Even if it involves itself in material nescience, it yet does there accurately the works of a perfect will and knowledge. Supermind lends itself to the action of the inferior instrument. It is always there indeed at the core as a secret support of their operations. In matter, it is an automatic action and effectuation of the hidden idea in things. In life, its most seizable form is instinct, and instinctive subconscious or partly subconscious knowledge and operation. In mind, it reveals itself as intuition, a swift, direct, and self effective illumination of intelligence, will, sense, and aesthesis. But these are merely irradiations of the supermind which accommodate themselves to the limited functioning of the obscurer instruments. Its own characteristic nature is a gnosis superconstant to mind, life, and body. Supermind or gnosis is the characteristic, element, significant action of spirit in its own native reality.
Okay, so we have only 3 minutes left. So I will do one thing. I'll just read out the summary of what he is saying. The summary helps because we, instead of getting lost in words, we get the gist of what he is saying. Spirit becomes man in the universe and it uses 4 instruments for its cosmic activities in nature. These 4 are supermind, mind, life, and body. What are these instruments? Supermind is defining all these things one by one. Supermind is a spiritual consciousness of self-existing knowledge. Note the word self-existing knowledge. Scientific knowledge is not self-existing. It is acquired knowledge. It doesn't exist by itself. It is acquired knowledge, built up knowledge. Supermind is spiritual consciousness of self-existing knowledge, power, will, aesthetic capacity, energy. It is the power that creates the cosmos and reveals and unveils its own self-existing Ananda. Supermind is a power of spirit to create real forms in the cosmos. Okay. Then, 1 second. Yeah. Super. That we've just now. Next is describing the mind. The mind also contains the same power, but more limited in every way. Okay? It's a diminished and degraded supermind. Supermind lives in oneness, but it plays, dallies, and sports with multiplicity. Mind lives in multiplicity, but is capable of opening to oneness. Mind is capable of ignorance because of limitation and incompleteness. Thus, mind normally acts as a power of the ignorance. Mind is a midway house that can become that can become inconscious, but it can also lead towards knowledge. But it can never become truly knowledge. Mind can't. It can lead you to it, but not, it can never become holy. But behind every action of mind, there is a supermind, secretly supporting the inferior mental activities. Supermind has full and complete knowledge and is inherently involved in all the lower planes of matter, life, and mind. It is involved. In matter, it is a law that arranges, ensures order, and intelligent automatic action. In life, supermind is seen at best as an instinct in animals. The instinct hardly ever fails. That is what life is. Finally, it comes to mind. In mind, it works as intuition, self-effective, which is self-effective like with senses and excesses. With sense and excess in mind. Then, automatic action, law, and intuition are its irradiations, manifestation, diminished forms. But in its own home, supermind is self-existent, light, and power. So this is what's interested in that. If necessary, we can do it next time. We already have gone beyond the time. You can make a note, I'll make a note that we can redo this one. Supermind mind, page 625.
Au revoir, Ranga.
Okay, au revoir everybody.
Thank you, Ranga.